this message about Elijah, and I don't want to get us sidetracked, but it's really important that we jump back in history just for a second to look at Elijah. It says, then he said to them, what kind of man was it who came up to meet you and told you these words? So they answered him, a hairy man wearing a leather belt around his waist. And he said, it is Elijah the Tishbite, obviously. And you see these descriptions of Elijah, and each of the descriptions of how he looked and how he dressed are precisely the way we read about John the Baptist. And you can't miss it. Like, it's a real obvious apples to apples. And that's what I mean by the clothes made the man. So what's going on here? Why is Elijah dressing like that? Why, more specifically, is John the Baptist emulating Elijah? And what's going on here is that the Old Testament prophesied that Elijah would return someday. Now, physically, that never happened. So what's that about? Why did the Bible say Elijah would return someday? In Luke 1:17, you see the prophecy around John the Baptist's birth, and this is what it says. And he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah. And here's his mission: to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. That's a quote from the Old Testament, from Kings, and it's saying that the mission of John the Baptist is the mission of Elijah. In other words, they're saying this is the second coming of Elijah. Now, the Bible doesn't believe in reincarnation. This isn't literally Elijah. He's a type of Elijah. This is the prophecy. It was actually talking about John the Baptist, and the connection is the clothes. They wanted to make sure that everybody realized this is what's going on here. They have the same mission, which is to prepare the way of the Lord, is to point to heaven, is to point to God, is to get ready and show who Jesus is. And if you missed it, again and again with the prophecies and then the descriptions of John and what he was saying and how he dressed, Jesus makes sure that you don't. Because in Matthew 11:14 it says, and if you are willing to accept it, Jesus says, he is the Elijah who was to come. So Jesus stamps his approval on John. It says, this is the Elijah that you've been waiting for. This is the one who was to prepare the way for me. This is the one who is my predecessor. He is there to make a road where there is no road. He is to pave the way where there is no way. John is the ultimate spiritual hype man, if you will. He is there to tell everyone that someone's about to come. Pay attention. Don't miss it. This is extraordinary. He's finally coming. And they were confused because they thought, are you Elijah? Who are you? The second thing you need to know about John the Baptist is he is known as the Voice. He is sort of a nickname that he had. You can hear this description of him in a few different places in Scripture. One of them is in John 1:19. This was John's testimony when the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask him who he was. He did not fail to confess, but confessed freely, I am not the Messiah. Now that's pretty important because he could have taken credit there in a sacrilegious way, pretended he was someone who's not. We see people today do that all the time, trying to take credit for things, trying to be bigger than they actually are. And everybody was willing to accept that. John was doing such an extraordinary job as a prophet and as a sort of a pastor and sort of a missionary. He was sort of all rolled into one. He was just proclaiming Jesus, and he was preaching and teaching and telling people the truth, and large crowds were attracted to him. He started to baptize people. By the way, when we say John the Baptist, that's not his denomination. Just want to be clear. They call him John the Baptist because he was baptizing like crazy, and they weren't doing baptisms before John. This was something new. Do you ever think about that? It's like, where did baptism start? And you see this idea of, I'm the precursor. You're being baptized for the forgiveness of sins all of a sudden. Why? Because Christ is here. And then, of course, as Christ starts to take over, then you see John start to take a back seat, and we'll get to that in a minute. He goes on, I'm not the Messiah. So they asked him, then who are you? Are you Elijah? You must be Elijah. We know Elijah's coming back, is implied. He said, no, I'm not Elijah. Are you the prophet? He said, no. Finally said, who are you? Give us an answer to take back to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself? John replied in the words of Isaiah the prophet, I am the voice of one calling in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord. So he replies with his mission. His identity is to point to Jesus. And specifically, his job is to be the voice. And he becomes known as the voice. Because the voice is not about John's personality or even what he looked like or his presence or even himself. It's about what he had to say. It's a very humble thing to receive this mission of being a disembodied voice. That it's not about me. It's all about the one to come. And everything I'm doing is about him. I'm just the voice. I'm just the pointer. I'm just the arrow. Everything I have is shining for Christ. It's not Elijah. I'm not the Messiah. And this, of course, is back to the prophecy of Isaiah 40, verse 3, which says, a voice of one calling in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. So John's a big deal. He's got prophecies about him in the Old Testament. And he's a big deal because he gets this incredible role of the precursor of Jesus. And he has angels at his birth and so on. In some ways you could say he's not that ordinary. And yet again and again he realizes, I'm nothing. This is all about Christ. This is all about God. When I think about John the Baptist, I always think about Don LaFontaine. Does anybody know who Don LaFontaine is? Raise your hand if you do. Nobody knows who he is. Until I say, in a world. Now, do you know who he is? Don LaFontaine was known as The Voice. He passed away in 2008. But prior to that, he was on about half the commercials on TV. Remember Geico? That's his voice. But mostly he was known for all the movie trailers that started with In a World. He did every single one of them. People tried to copy him. They couldn't do it. He had a specific sound. He became known as The Voice. He made a lot of money just by saying In a World. And it made you want to go watch the movie. I don't know why. It just drew you in. Now, what was the thing about Don LaFontaine? It's like, you don't even know who he was. When I say his name, you have no idea who I was talking about. But you know his voice. I wanted to play a clip. They said legally I couldn't. Sorry. So blame Joe. It's his fault. He wouldn't let me. Copyright, whatever. But you would know it. You would recognize it. And you've seen the movies. Now, he's not the actor. He's not the director. He's not the important person. He's not the main driver of the story. All he is the guy who points to that story. He's just the one that says, you should go and see that movie. And you do because he's so compelling in the way he talks about it, right? That's John. That's John's role. He's the voice. That's all he is. He's the one saying, look, I'm not the one. I'm not Messiah. I'm not even Elijah. I'm just the one who points to him. I'm just the one who talks about him. I'm the one who shines for him. I'm the one who acts for him. And my whole life is about him. And that's us too, isn't it? You and I, we're the voice. As Christians, that's our primary role, is that we say, no, I'm not the one. It's not about me. God lets me do some amazing things, but this isn't about Rob or you. This is about the Messiah. This is about Christ. It's about his glory. That's why we come together in worship every Sunday and just lift his name up and high. The third thing I want you to know about John the Baptist is he knew when to get out of the way. He was becoming very popular. It's seen, as you look carefully in the books of the Gospels and Matthew in particular, you can see his fame was spreading. He was a celebrity. He wasn't setting out to be a celebrity. He just was. He was becoming a household name, still is. If you say John the Baptist, most people know who you're talking about. He's a very famous person by the time they take his head off. But he knew when to get out of the way. When Jesus appears on the scenes, he's very cautious at first to say, I want to make sure this really is Jesus. I know he's coming. This seems like Jesus.